Hello, everybody. My name is Pamela Benitez. I'm here with three lovely ladies that I really like, and they know everything about the virtual events. They've been working so hard these months. Anaïs, that I want to say, she just finished literally yesterday an event which I was an exhibitor. When she last week was at the Asia Virtual Sportspro Media event, and Louise literally still working this week in another event. So I think you're going to learn a lot with them. I just want to say a quick word just to introduce quickly the virtual events experience. I just launched the business, last month, in 1 month, and I did the record time of building a social enterprise business in 3 months only. And those that don't know what is a social enterprise, because I think a lot of people get confused between social enterprise and charity. So social enterprise business is a business that is committed to give away or reinvest more than half of their annual profits. And in my case, I decided that I would go for 51% reinvest in promoting different social causes and helping unemployed events managers, as I became during the pandemic, to find a new source of income. I noticed and I received a lot of feedbacks from the first talk that a lot of events managers that are unemployed, I still don't understand well and how to start to, create virtual events. Therefore, I decided to put this wonderful panel here of experts to talk about it. And I hope that you enjoy. Now, I'm going to pass this to our wonderful MC, and I worked with her. She was my captain before, and this is Louise Garlick, and I will live with her from now on. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela, and it's great to be here this afternoon. Welcome, everybody, and good morning to anybody from the other side of the pond. Good afternoon, good evening. It's a great pleasure to be hosting talk number 2 of the Virtual Events Experience. This session is dedicated to unemployed event managers, and we're going to be talking about how to create and organise virtual events successfully. My name is Louise Garlick, and I'll be your MC for this session. And like many people in the industry, I've had to pivot from organising large-scale live events in all kinds of sporting environments, conferences, exhibitions, and over the summer I've been working with a PCO organising a medical exhibition for a global association, and we used a 3D virtual platform called Virtway, where 3,500 people had their own avatars, and we created kind of an virtual exhibition and live events forum. So it's great to be on the panel with Yin and Anaïs. But before I introduce the two of them, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Just to keep you informed, if there's any questions, please, I can see a few of you chatting away in the chat, which is great. If there's any questions, please put them in the tab with questions. We'll be opening some polls shortly, so please participate and get involved with those. And yeah, we understand that participants are signing up from all over the world, so please carry on in the chat box. And the replay of this event will be available post-event, so you'll be able to receive a link to watch, and it will be published on the Virtual Events Experience YouTube channel. So please subscribe to that. So let's start the session. I'd first like to welcome Yin Khoo. She's the head of events production for Sportspro Media. So over to you, Yin, for a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so yeah, as Louise has mentioned, I work for Sportspro Media. Sportspro is a sports business company. We handle basically the entire sports industry across globally. And I actually look after the event portfolio, ensuring that our events run to the standard that we want them to. So I've been doing events for about 13 years, but prior to that, actually, I was a graphic designer and started off there and started my creative flair from that, and then have slowly moved into the events side of things and loved it ever since. So that's just a small snippet about what I do.
Fabulous. And what about you, Anaïs?
So my name is Anaïs. I work at FutureX, where we organize events and programs for entrepreneurs and kind of business leaders, all focused on doing better business. So we organize large-scale summits in Scotland, and we also have a community, online community, and we've also run a program in the US and in Asia in the past few years. So along with the team, we put those events together, and yes, we've obviously moved online for this year, but it's something we're thinking about doing before, so I'm sure we can talk about that a little bit later, but it's a very exciting space. I'm super happy to be here today. I think it's been a tough year for the events industry, so any knowledge we can share and any ways we can find to kind of collaborate together is definitely precious at the moment.
Exactly. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the platforms and things you're both using at the moment?
Of course. So we actually just ran yesterday and the day before that Startup Summit. So I'm still on the hype from running the event. So Startup Summit has been running for 9 years. And usually we organize it in the most charming historical venue in Edinburgh. And this year we moved to the most charming platform, which was Hey Summit and Remo. So we use Hey Summit for kind of the event platform where people can watch the sessions and the talks. And, you know, it's a business conference, so it's a lot of inspirational talks from founders and other people. And we do a mix of pre-recorded sessions and live sessions. And we integrate with Vimeo and StreamYard for the video production. And obviously, when you attend a business event, networking is absolutely key. You want to meet those people, you want to make those connections. And that was probably the hardest thing for us to try and do online. You can't completely replicate the atmosphere and the energy you have between hundreds of people together in one room. So we have found a tool called remo.co and kind of hacked our way around it to make it our virtual networking and exhibitor area. So it's the third event this year that we kind of use that combination of platforms to put together. And it's been, you know, it's been a journey. It's been a lot of testing. It's been a lot of listening to people as well. I think we're very lucky. We've got a very patient and kind audience that has, you know, been okay to give us feedback and be with us on that kind of learning journey together. So yes, I think we still have a few things to learn, but we've got a good combo for what we're doing at the moment. And it's quite exciting to see what happens next. Really, we're thinking about going virtual before all of this, so we sort of fast-tracked everything. It's been good.
And so for you, was there a lot of the same content and things that you were doing in previous years that was still relevant for the virtual?
Absolutely. I think it's so one thing that the virtual event has unlocked is the potential to go even more international. You know, before we had to fly speakers from the US, from Australia, from Asia. Sometimes it's it's not clearly ideal, even in terms of cost for the planet at the moment, which is something we care about. So moving that content online has allowed us to, you know, increase the number of international speakers, but the message is very much the same around the business and business for purpose. So our mission has stayed the same. We just found new channels to kind of get more people on board, which has been really exciting in terms of accessibility as well.
Great. Yeah, and I'm sure that's a similar scenario for Sportspro.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm not going to lie, we didn't have virtual on our radar at all, realistically. Like it wasn't something we planned to do. Obviously, pandemic had pushed us into that direction. We actually snuck an event in this year in February in Atlanta, and that was while things were still kicking off. And we were like, yeah, cool, all good. We didn't think anything of it. Our next one was going to be in Singapore in March, but that obviously didn't happen. So, you know, we then had to obviously quickly do a 180 and figure out what we were going to do. The platform, for us, I know I've got some of my team listening in actually. we did a lot of research on what platforms to use. We probably looked at over 60 platforms. Elisa can contest to that, actually. And we went from everything from like the VFairs, a lot of the American-based and American user-friendly sort of platforms, similar to the Hey Summits and the Remos and that sort of thing. We also looked at the Events Fair, VFairs, Events Air. We've had Tame, swap cards in there. You know, we've been through it all, and we went through everything. And it was one of those things where when we decided we'd gone through it all, we came back to Swapcard, because Swapcard was something that we use as an event app online. We were very familiar with it, and they went, hey, we're doing this as well. We looked at it and we sort of discounted it quite quickly at the very beginning. We came around full circle, came back to that and went, do you know what, actually, out of all the ones we've tested and what we're looking at doing, it kind of works for us. And that was one of those moments where you're just like, it doesn't matter what other people are doing, what any other business is doing, it's what's right for you at that point in time. And there are plenty of options out there to which we thought we found, like, you know, certain ones, and we really didn't want to use Swapcard, but it came back and we were like, yeah, do you know what, Swapcard really works. So we use Swapcard in line with Vimeo, so we stream to Vimeo, that sits in the Swapcard platform, and actually on top of that, we sort of launched some webinar series of events in April, and we host actually those on Livestorm, so we're quite familiar with this platform as well. And we find that the interactivity works really well. So on this platform, you guys will see the chat, you know, you can chat away, the questions are there, polls can be asked, and it's very easy to sort of see the attendees from our perspective. We can see sort of who is here, and it's, from a speaker perspective, everybody's been like quite complimentary of the platform as well. So for us at the moment, Swapcard and Livestorm are there. I'm still looking at new platforms. We still get new inquiries all the time. So it's like, do you know what, let's just have a look and see what's going. What's been really nice to see actually is that all of the companies, you know, even if you saw them and looked at them 1 month, 2 months ago, have a look at them again, because actually they've completely changed. So Swapcard has come like a really long way since we first started the research, and they've done really, really well. But it's definitely something that won't go away anytime soon. You know, we've got one more event this year in terms of our virtual, and that's one of our biggest ones that we normally hold in Madrid over 3 days. That's now going completely virtual, which is sad for some of us because, you know, we really want that in-person event. But going on to next year, that hybrid option, you know, we're going to keep this with us and keep learning from it. But in all fairness, it is one thing to like have somebody tell you this platform, like, so for Anaïs, Hey Summit and Remo worked really well. We tested it out, didn't work for us. And that's nothing to do with the product. It's just to do with your clientele, your audience, and what you're wanting to achieve. But yeah, so for us, Swapcard and Livestorm.
We've just had a question in actually about which platform out there would you say allows the most live interaction with speakers and guests? And I know, Anaïs, you touched on that about the networking side of things. Is there something that you've put in place to try and encourage that interaction?
So for us, the key point was we didn't want just a chat box. We didn't want just a text box where you messaged people. We wanted more, and that's what we like with Remo. It's a video chat option, and Remo, basically the way it works is you've got a little floor plan with tables, and you can double click and join tables freely. So it has this kind of component of, you know, fun, and it's really the attendee that decides where they want to go. And because you can see the avatars as well, you can see like, oh, there's Yin over there. I know her. I'm going to go into a table. And, you know, that kind of mimics the interaction you would get into a physical venue. So that was kind of the fun part of it. And also, I guess the other side of it is when you move your event from physical to online, you can't just copy paste everything. You need to take into consideration that people get zoomed out. People can't, you know, see 8 hours in front of their laptop, especially, you know, the first event we put together was back in May, and we had some gorgeous day up here in Scotland, which, you know, is the minute that you've got the sun hit, people just rush outside and just leave their laptops behind. So it was making sure that we build specific times just for networking as well within the agenda, and facilitated networking if possible. So we either had kind of a host kind of encouraging questions, but we also use the whiteboard feature on Remo, which is basically the equivalent of a sign or a pop-up board you would have at a physical event, I guess, where, you know, we suggested icebreaker questions, questions around our theme, so people could get the conversation started. So that video component was really, really important. And it's all about communicating at the end of the day and managing people's expectation. It's very clear that, yes, we all would rather be in a physical, you know, venue for most of us. But at the moment, this is kind of the best we can do. We're not saying it's better or exactly the same as the physical experience, but it's a suggestion. Let's try it together. And, you know, it's not for you, so that's okay as well. Real life networking isn't, you know, everyone's piece of cake either. So yeah, it's about managing expectation, communication, and providing alternatives. So having both video and chat is usually, yeah, what we've found that has worked best for our audience so far.
Brilliant. Anything to add to that, Ian?
No, but I was going to say, actually, communication, as Anaïs has mentioned, is absolutely key, because at the end of the day, your networking is only going to be as successful as the memos you put out and the understandings that your delegates have of the platform. So the one thing that's really important is that don't expect your delegates to understand how the platform works straight away. Although a lot of them are built really simply. This is obviously works very well for a webinar basis. It's quite straightforward to use. But when it comes to those big virtual summits and you've got those big platforms, it's not going to be something that people are going to be like, hey, I'm going to click every button. We're going to do it because that's what our job is, to test everything out and find it all out. But if you've got delegates who are just there for networking or just there for content, they're only going to go straight to those little elements on your page. So if they're not easy to work out and they're not easy to sign up to, that's also going to put a hindrance. And I think the one thing that we need to do, especially with virtual, is to make sure that we take away as many layers as possible. You know, we don't have that physical touch, so people we can't read what our delegates are thinking or doing. So making it really easy to sign up to something, understanding, you know, giving them all the information, the how-tos, the get the best out of your day, this is what you need to do. So whilst there are, like, you know, Remo is a very good platform for networking, there are specific, you know, specific combinations actually of products. So it might not be just one product that works perfectly. Actually, you might bring in a few products to do things. So for us at the moment, Swapcard is our main product, but actually we bring in Livestorm for our networking element side of things, so people can just pop into a room. And I think that's the one thing we sort of need to be aware of, is actually no one product's going to do it all. So take the elements if you can, if you need to, build that event stack. It's not just going to be this one does everything or doesn't do everything, but we're going to sort of try and hack our way through. At the beginning, we're going to need to do that, but actually find the best out of each element, each product, and see if there's a way to bring it together. But ultimately, communication is key, because if your delegates don't know what's happening and they don't know how to do something, then they're not going to turn up to, you know, a round table or a networking event if, yeah, they don't know how to get there.
Thank you. I think there's some great tips there. I know, even from my side, I think, as you say, the communication is always key, and just trying to keep it simple for everyone that is attending these things. Oh, we've got another question. So from Raleigh, how about contingency planning? Could you share what you do in terms of risk assessment before the event, for example, if the platform crashes on the day? Shall I start with you? Sorry, I'll start with you, Ian.
I don't know who you want to start with. Absolutely. Especially with virtual, great question. You need to test everything out beforehand. And that's actually part of the process of choosing your platform, as well as finding out how stable your platform is. Have they load tested it? Do they know what happens when something fails? What's the support mechanism that they have? So, you know, other things like, for instance, this event, we've all logged on as speakers as another delegate on our phones. So if something happens to this main one, we're on a backup and we can get straight back on there. Testing with your speakers, ultimate number one thing. You have to do a rehearsal with your speakers in the location they are going to be doing their webinar or their session from. Do not underestimate the fact that, oh, we're at work, it's fine. You know, at work is probably even worse, because there will be firewalls, there will be IT issues, there will be ports that they can't get connected to. And that is actually number one basic stuff that we should be doing beforehand. That shouldn't be something that crops up on the day. The things like where if Wi-Fi goes down, your contingency there is you have, you know, at least let your speakers know about your mobile phone tethering. Give them at least that option so they know if something goes wrong, you can do this. You know, if you get to a point where it's like second, third, fourth thing down the line, you get to a point where it's like, okay, moderator then just says, do apologize, please pass your questions on and we will get them back to you. But, you know, ultimately it is planning and making sure you've done your absolute best to test everything out, especially if you're going live. If you're recording, that's a different story. But in terms of going live, the ultimate, no matter how high up the food chain your speakers are, if they're the CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies, it doesn't matter. They need to be on that platform. They need to be tested. Don't get their PAs to do it unless it's from their work laptop. Ultimately, if something goes wrong, they need to know how to get back onto the platform. So cannot stress enough how important it is to test and test and test. But that's, yeah.
Nah, I definitely second that. Definitely testing, more testing, and then a bit more testing as well. Also, you know, make sure get everyone in the team involved as well, even people that are not necessarily as event focused, because it can be so valuable to have their take on what the platform looks like. It's so easy that to you know, you get your head into it and you know how to use a platform, but maybe it's not as straightforward for someone who just got on there. So get everyone involved, and on the tech side, get someone involved who's got a Windows laptop, someone who's got Mac laptop, someone's on Android, someone on iPhone. Get everything you can. Get your mom involved to check if she can access a platform and understand how it works. It's about this sharing and this testing that is so important. And I think a big part of it is also accepting that it's okay. Something does go wrong sometimes, the same way that it happens at live events. Sometimes the train is on strike or something, your speaker can't make it, catering options, I didn't think about the veggie options. There can be something that can go wrong in events. I think it's kind of the nature of what we do. It's how we're going to react around it. And again, communication is key. And as Ian said, check the support from this platform as well. It's so important. You get the demo, product looks great, but ask about how much support we can get. Can you get someone from their team at hand to help you with any tech issues on the day? And I know we had that at Startup Summit where we had someone from Remo, directly in Remo with us, so that any potential tech issues, we could send people her way. We just had a quick tech kind of check link to send to people, and then have someone at hand. So check that support. And then I think what Ian said around Wi-Fi is definitely important. Plug in your laptop as well. Remind battery. It's in those speaker briefs. It's just kind of refreshing those and talking. There's no small thing. It's turn your notification off if you go live. We don't want to know what email pops up. It's in the middle of your talk. So it's kind of rethinking everything, and obviously it's tweaking as you go as well. You can't plan for everything, and you're going to learn on the way. So if you accept that and just keep on tweaking, people will see that as well. And if you show that you're open to kind of that feedback, everyone grows from that, I think.
Great advice. I think even the plugging in the laptop for me is, you probably don't even think about it half the time if it's just there. So keep it simple and remember all the little bits. So I know one of you mentioned about having pre-recorded sessions. Ian, do you do that a lot for your events, or what's the balance of pre-recorded versus live, for instance?
Our balance is probably 90% live. So we've only recently introduced a couple of pre-records, and that's because we've had time differences or speakers have actually not been able to make the time that they've been allocated to. I initially started off with the whole live, absolutely live. I want the authenticity. I want people to be able to see the engagement. So similar to what we're doing here, being able to feed in with the chat at the same time. But that's not to say that there isn't a place for pre-records. There's definitely a place for pre-records. We have a couple of sessions at our summits where they're like 10-minute little snippets, 10-minute sessions that go on. And actually, sometimes it's like, let's weigh up the options. If a speaker is running late, if they cannot get connected in time, 10 minutes goes by very quickly, and all of a sudden what they're being sold and what they're meant to be doing isn't what they're doing, because actually their sessions are now cut to 5 minutes. So whilst I still absolutely champion live and put the contingencies in place to make sure, if we have speakers drop off, our moderators know what to do, our hosts know what to do, we do have a few pre-recorded items that we do have in our events. But yeah, slowly, I think that will be something that will become more and more part of our events. But at the moment, the feedback that we're getting, the live sessions are working really well. The interaction, because that's the other thing actually, is like with virtual, you've lost that sense of in person, so you can't tell what people are thinking. And actually, part of me personally is like, if I'm watching a video, why do I need to watch it now? I could watch it later. I could watch it in my own time. Actually, you've asked me to log in for a specific time to be able to be part of this event. Let's make it as in person as possible to a point. It's never going to be the same, but actually, let's try and get the best out of people's time sat here. Like, we're all sat here for, this session is going to be an hour. Let's make sure it's interactive as possible. Let's engage with the questions that are being asked. Let's throw questions backwards and forwards to each other, go back to the audience. It can be done very well with pre-records if you think about how we're sort of putting that in. And what we've done previously is had the presentation done. We've recorded that, we've produced it, we've made it so it is a little bit more engaging. And then the speaker will be there at the end to be able to interact with that. So at least there's still that element there.
How about you, Anaïs? Anything else?
Yeah, we've done similar thing. It's really a mix of pre-recorded for similar reasons as well. Time difference, work with a lot of people based in the UK, work with a lot of people in Silicon Valley. So it can be a long stretch as well. So definitely time difference and availability, as you mentioned. And also, I think it's kind of pre-recorded is a contingency plan by itself as well, in case everything live does drop out, as it's a different platform. So it gives you that little safety. And it's also just making sure that people have a diverse type of content really to pick from, and there's kind of no pressure. The way our events work is usually have 1 day or 2 days of really kind of live, and things come on a different time, but you can always go networking if you prefer, and then usually have an extra few days to kind of watch on demand. But to us, it's more than pre-recorded or live. It's also about the format. So we found that interviews are often a lot more engaging than keynotes, for example. But panels can be a little bit tricky to organize. If you've got 4, 5, 6 people that need to be live, the risk of obviously someone having issues is higher. So we preferably try to go for pre-recorded if you've got kind of larger panels like this. But definitely the interaction and the chat and the ability to do questions, very, very important. And I love that you mentioned kind of pre-recorded and then having the speaker do a Q&A live. We've done that as well before. It's quite a lot of work in terms of organization and thinking up everything, I'm not going to lie, but it's a good experience usually. It's quite fun for the speaker and for the attendees. So that's the important bit.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm the same. A lot of the things that we've been doing is we've got backup and presentations and things pre-recorded, but then, as you say, in the interaction of live experience is what we're here for. We've got another question come in, this time from Sigrun. They're asking, we are working mainly for public clients, working with technical solutions. Did you also have any focus around GDPR? Did you need to check the tools if they're compliant within the EU, especially after the cancellation of the privacy shield between US and the EU in July? Shall I start with you, Anaïs?
Yes. Yes, basically, yes. GDPR, of course, and it's maybe what you mentioned at the beginning. A lot of those platforms are often US-based, those kind of all-in-one platforms. So it's something you do need to check. So with public sector, what we found, yes, GDPR is important, and also, Celine touched on that earlier, the firewalls and the solutions. We work with a lot of public sector here that cannot use Zoom. They use Microsoft Teams, for example, but for some of our events, the sessions were on Zoom, so they couldn't join it. So you have to basically check. And I think, to be honest, I reached out many times to several platforms saying like, hey, what's your GDPR policy? They'll have it as a ready. Most of them have something in place because they do not want to mess on this EU-based customer base. It would be silly to do it. So most of them do have something so that it's very transparent. And data is something very important to manage when you've got those online events. It's also checking your own privacy policy and the way you treat the data yourself, and just being clear about when you delete the data and that sort of things. So having that already in place makes it a lot easier to kind of work with public clients. So I would say when you kind of shop around for the online platforms of your dream, just make that one of the criteria around GDPR, make it part of the kind of tender, and reach out and find all the documents you need from them so that you're ready to pass them on to your clients as well. So.
Thank you. Any specifics from the platforms that you've used, Ian, around GDPR?
So Swapcard actually prided itself in being GDPR compliant. That was one of the big things. They're based in France, so obviously they had to do this, and that was a great thing for us, because we always, prior to obviously COVID and going virtual, before that, even with the event app, there was always people like, oh, but I don't want to share my data, this, that, the other. It's like, you won't get that data unless somebody says yes, connect. So they're actively saying we want to be involved. We've also we've had to change our terms and conditions as well from the registration process before getting into Swapcard as well. So we've had to make sure that our terms are very, very clear. People have to opt in and what they're opting in for. So even covering yourself as well is something that you need to be clear on, because you ultimately hold that data. Yes, that's sat in a third-party product, but actually you are the one controlling that data. What are you going to be doing with that? So we've had to make sure that we are ultimately so clear with our terms and conditions, to the point where it is like there's a lot of checkboxes going on, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And actually a lot of our clients now understand that. So when it is that whole data, you are sharing data because they're sponsoring and this, that, the other, it is those who have opted in. And we will tell them the numbers of people who watched and everything else, and then these are the people you get because of people have willingly opted in to be able to share their data with our partners. And I think there's a lot more acceptance now as well. So, people understand that is a thing, and that's just, you can't force people to share their data. So that's something else that, as long as your clients understand, and they should really, especially being in the EU, they should all understand that, we're now all accepting to the fact that is the way it is, unless people opt in.
Thank you. Next, we've got another question as well from Raleigh again. Have your event KPIs changed since shifting from face-to-face to online events? And also, have you come across tools to help you measure these, i.e. the engagement from your attendees at a particular virtual event? And I'm also just going to throw in at the same time, if you've come across the best ways to monetize a virtual event in relation to live events. So I'll start with you, Anaïs.
Sure. So monetizing a virtual event all depends on what your goal is. Kind of surrounding around this data issue as well. You can create a free virtual event for purely lead generation. So having lots of free content available and trying to collect those leads, really. Or you could do, a mixture of a paid event with kind of sponsors and exhibitors financing your event. It's not that much different than physical events in this space. The way that you've got to know what your audience wants, and you've got to know how much they're ready to pay for something. How much they're ready to pay for something physically versus virtually. That's where the kind of game number starts, and there's a little bit of tiptoeing around and guessing, and not everyone put the same value on things. A lot of people think if it's online, it should be free, and there's maybe some truth to that, but it's not entirely true. As event organizers, putting an event online still costs us money, even if it's usually less than for physical events, although it's not always true. So in terms of monetizing the event, I think that whether it's, especially if it's a paid event for tickets, I think one thing to keep in mind is kind of the accessibility. So always consider kind of concession tickets as well, I would say. Whether for students or unemployed people on benefits at the moment is very important. And a good way to do it online is also to have a paid forward system. So having kind of your attendees or your sponsors kind of funding tickets, so that can, get you extra tickets in kind of the package, and then, you can allocate those to other people. So monetizing the event is really, it's a basic cost benefit analysis. Will people be ready to pay for this? So, but at the end of the day, it's down to your agenda and the speakers and whatever it is. But basically, yes, you can monetize events, and obviously your KPI is going to change a little bit. One of the main shifts for us was when people buy their tickets. I don't know if it's something you've noticed as well. It's a lot closer to the date of the event, usually, which, gives you that roller coaster of event organizing, little extra boost. Because simply, it's people, the way they work their agenda, when they go to a physical event, they're really in that space of, I'm going to block an entire day in my agenda for this one-day event. Whereas for an online event, they're going to look at the stage sessions, for example, and they're going to say, oh, that talk from 11 till 11:30 looks really cool. I'll book my time for this, but I'm not sure. I think I've got a meeting after or before. So the KPIs kind of change in terms of when people get their tickets. And otherwise, it's what Ian touched on. So rather than just the number of attendees, you've got the number of views on each session, on each talks. A lot of platforms have pop-up banners for partners, so you can measure the number of clicks on there. You can sort of collect data here and there. So it's, if anything, you kind of get more data by being online. But, data numbers can make them say what you want sometimes. So it's making sure you've got the context as well. If people, how many people, especially if you've got a free event, how many people have logged in from all of those tickets. It's a lot easier to not log into something when you didn't pay as well. So it's a lot of things to consider. Overall, we did have a few changes in the way we measure things, but to us, it just allows us to kind of tweak as well for the next time to see what interviews or panels or keynotes are most popular. Was it because of the format? Was it because of the time? Was it because of the speakers themselves? Was it so you can sort of have a bit more data-driven decisions in the way you organize your events moving forward. I think that's kind of covers different bases.
Definitely covered, I think, a lot of the points there. What about you, Yin, from especially not having done so many virtual events before the pandemic?
Yeah, so for us, in terms of the KPIs, we did our first big virtual event in September. So really not that long ago. And we did one last week as well. And these were two that were meant to happen in March and April. So these are our big ones. We've been doing the webinars since April. We did those sort of every 2 weeks. And they actually turned into a life of their own, actually. And that was more just keeping our community together. So just seeing who was attending, who was watching, what they were doing, and what types of people are these people already existing? Are they new to us? So that was, for us, that was a, let's see who we can get. Let's keep the community going. Let's let them know that we're still here, because otherwise we didn't have an event till September. Like, we would be silent in that entire period. So for us, that was more of just making sure that people were around, people knew we were still there, and building up that series. And that's something that we launched and is still going to this day. Since September and October, I guess the whole, after our first one, it was very much like, okay, we did that, it's worked, let's build on that. Looking at the KPIs, it is yet again, what is, who attends? How many people, because we also have that, we've got a free ticket and we've got a premium ticket. So great thing is the barrier to market is nil for people. So anybody can attend our events, free to attend, to see the content, to speak to our exhibitors, not a problem at all. The premium pass, that's where the networking comes in. So it's just, we are seeing sort of who sees the value in it, who is attending for content, who is attending for networking. They were our top 2 reasons as to why people attended our in-person event. So now it's like, okay, so how do we transfer that across, and does it transfer well? Buying people's time online, getting them to sit in front of a laptop and listen to content and take part is a very difficult thing. I recently attended an event over the last 3 days. I made my meetings and I didn't make any of the content. Not because I didn't want to, but it actually ended up being like, I actually just don't have time for this. So I can watch it on demand. So that's another thing that's come into line, where it's like, when you're measuring KPIs, it's like, it's not just about live, actually, it's about the on-demand side of things, because all of a sudden that remit there is a lot stronger than it would have been at an in-person event. We offered everything at our in-person events online as well. But the on-demand part, we looked at it, was there, it was a nice to have feature. Now it's actually a lot more popular. We're seeing the numbers actually increase. And, from the day of the event to a good 3 or 4 or 5 days after, there's still that bustling activity that's happening on the platform. So, the KPIs for us have shifted a little bit, because it is just trying to figure out, like, we're still learning. We're still trying to figure out what that perfect event looks like. And everyone in the industry is still growing in terms of that and molding the way for the virtual event and what that looks like. So for us, it's definitely, getting the engagement, trying to build our audience, being able to see what the trends are, what people are sort of staying on for. So for us, we're fact finding at the moment as well. Like, we're still trying to figure out how to make this the perfect event. And we're seeing sort of what people are doing, what people are seeing, and how we can then build upon that. So yeah, we're still in that, the KPIs are not going to be as strong as they were when it was in person, where it's just like, how much revenue did we make? How much profit did we make? How much did I not spend? Did I hit my budget target? That's kind of all gone out the window, because budgets are very different now. And when it comes to the monetization side of things, like I said, we have a free, like, our delegate, passes are nowhere near what they would have been in an in-person event, because yet again, people are signing up the day before the event. People are signing up on the event day. People are signing up midway through the event. So it's a very different minefield there, and which is why we've sort of shifted that currently to sponsorship. So it's being part of our event, being associated with our name. We have a very strong foothold in the industry of business, B2B sports events, sports conferences. So being part of that, being able to be seen as a thought leader at our event, having your name associated with the keynote speaker, that sort of thing. So it's all about, it's about branding, it's about awareness. It's not just about tapping a logo somewhere. Although you would say maybe in the virtual world, maybe more so than in the in-person world. But it's that association, and that has been a strong point for us. And we've shifted and had to obviously, review our budgets and review targets. So having a look at that and being able to see what we can do going forward is definitely, it's ever changing, but it's definitely stronger on the sponsorship side of things, and selling the experience of what they can access, who can access them, being involved in a round table, like, being a host of a round table, that's been quite popular for us, because people are like, we love it. We love to be able to sit in on an intimate, 6 to 8 person table and then have a good chat. That's where a lot of the contacts are made. It's not in the big 50, 60 person, big Zoom call. It's the 5, 6 person chats where you're making those real meaningful connections. So it's definitely, maybe one day the delegate side of things will pick up for us, but at the moment, from where we see it, we are like, we actually want everybody to be able to see our content. We want everybody to be involved. And then when they see sort of what we can do, especially for the new people to us who don't know who we are, then they can go, actually, you do get the people there, we have speakers that you want to chat to. That's where they can, they can see what we do and they can become invested. We don't just want them to go, oh, I'm going to buy a ticket and then actually go, I didn't get anything out of it. They need to understand what we do, what we're about, and then go from there.
Great. I think I'm conscious of time. We've only got a couple of minutes left, and we've had 3 or 4 questions all come in the last few minutes. We can cover as many as possible. We've got one from Claire. How engaged have you found corporates to be taking events online, and how prepared are they to spend the money on doing it? On average, how much does it cost to put on a virtual event as opposed to a physical event? And then we've also got having so much quantitative data, does it make it easier or more difficult to provide qualitative feedback being virtual? Yin, shall I pass that one over to you, and then perhaps Anna, you can answer the question around how engaged corporates are.
Yeah, so in regards to the quantitative data, yes, there is so much data there that you have to actually, it's more difficult, because you actually have to read into who that person is, when they signed up, what tickets did they have, where were they, and what time zone they're in, what country they're from. You've got to go so much deeper into the data when it comes to a virtual event, because there's so many more layers that you don't see. Like in in-person event, obviously you can see what's going on, you get a vibe for the event, you can figure out pretty much easily from you being in the event what's happening. Whereas with virtual, we've taken so much longer to sort of pull the data, have a look at it, read it, understand it, and then make an assessment from it. I'm still making assessment from our first event in September. Like, it's still an ongoing thing, because also the data keeps changing as well. So it's like, actually, what's happening now at that event. So it's more difficult, is what I would say. It's better because we can then really nail down to the exact reasoning as to why people are attending, but you do need to give it time.
Yeah.
And you'll get that qualitative data. I think people do complain and do tell you when it's great usually. So it's more human nature to complain on social media when something's wrong, for example, but you will get that qualitative feedback, I think, from people and the networking. So yeah. About corporates being engaged, if you want, we have worked with our partners. So the first online events we did was back in May. We had to completely turn around within 6 weeks of physical impact summit that usually takes place in Glasgow completely online. And obviously we had all our partners already confirmed, our speakers and so on. So we managed to keep all our partners on board. It was down again to communication. Most of them have been working with us for a few years as well, so they trust us and they knew that we were doing our best to try and put something together that was good. So I think the corporates are still engaged in online events. Of course they are. I think there's a big part of supporting what we do. As you mentioned, a lot of events also changing business models to relying more on sponsors, which means that as an event organizer, you need to make sure you provide the value to them. And the most important thing is that it's not just on the day of the online event. It's everything in the lead up to it. It's everything after it as well. You can provide value, all the way around. It's almost seeing it as a media company or advertising. Online you've got a website, so you've got press that you can do. You've got different channels you can activate. So it's making sure that value comes across and definitely managing their expectations, showing them the platform that you use. Taking the time to do demos with them, how they can engage with people. So it's definitely still there, and for us, we've managed to keep engaged with our corporate partners throughout the 3 events this year, which is absolutely fantastic as well. But it's it takes a bit of work, but again, it's communicating. I think that's very important.
I certainly think this is a subject that we could probably spend hours discussing and talking about, and I'm sure to any of the audience that we haven't answered questions and things, we will be writing in the chat afterwards, and please do reach out to us and engage after the event. There's just one final one from Marzino I want to cover, which is quite unique. Do you have either of you have any experience with simultaneous translation at virtual events?
I have not yet.
Not as an organizer, but I have attended an event that had a British Sign Language interpreter on camera, which I think, I thought was great. Something we needed to see more at physical events. It's great to get in the virtual space when closed captioning is not always possible. So that's the thing I've seen. It was done in Remo at the time. It was, I think, a pitching competition for businesses, and they had the BSL interpreter and to kind of help the CTA the whole experience, which I thought was brilliant. But that's kind of the only experience I've got as an attendee. I think otherwise, in terms of languages, I'm yet to see something. Again, as a European Commission or the UN on how they manage their live translations, maybe we've got something to learn across industry there.
Yeah. I think, as we all know, with organising events, if you can dream it, it's possible, and we can find a solution to it at some point. It's just obviously learning the tools as we go. I see Pamela's joined us back in the room to remind us of time.
No. I think that this is definitely a topic that you girls need to come back and keep talking more, because I can't believe it. I was just seeing the numbers. I think everybody stay tuned until now. I hope that the people don't leave because I'm here. But it's been really, really good talk from you girls, and thank you so much. I just wanted to pop in to say a really big thank you for you, all of you, to come, and also for the audience to be so much keen to learn as well, which I think the questions were amazing, like fantastic questions. And So I'll leave with you, Lou, just to wrap.
Yeah, no, just a final thank you for everyone joining us. And remember that the session will be replayed and available to watch for 1 week. So you'll receive a link from that shortly. But again, big thank you to Anaïs and Yin for taking their Friday afternoons to come and speak with us. And stay tuned for hopefully talk number 3 from Pamela and the virtual events team.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. And if you can check out FutureX from Anaïs, Sportspro Media from Win, Cape from Louise, and of course the virtual events experience. And I hope that you have enjoyed this session. Thank you so much for joining as well. And yeah, keep it up. Sign up on our newsletter to know the next talk. I try always to change the topic. It's always focused for unemployed events managers that wants to find a new source of income. So most likely next one is going to be about marketing, how to change to marketing career, because I think a lot of events managers also are looking to swap and to change to another different career. So keep it up. And thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks all. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
Thank you.